Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we come in with little Tommy Whitmore making his triumphant return to Spaced Out Radio tonight, talking MJ-12. Dirty Filth is here as well with another crazy cartoon. And the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you, including Tim Mothman and his goatee in the gold medal position. Race Fan taking home a silver. SJ with a bronze medal tonight. Robert Lamoth and Joanne, Kitty Cattywhack. How y'all doing? JSCO, Brown Dwarf, Eternity Eternal, and Lee the Bee. Thank you for coming on in. Mel WD-40 is here. Mel will be lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want that uncomfortable rigidness. So that's why Mel is lubing us up as we speak. Hi, Cosmic Joe, and Stephanie Kenny Blankenship is here. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio if you can. Bring a bottle of whiskey. She needs it right now. And we love you, Stephanie. Frankie B, how you doing? Dogface Simon and Thomas Rock. How you guys doing? Little Timmy James, what's happening? Digger Dog, nice to see you here. High Operation Shutdown and Cool Arrow. As we continue on with the roll call, number 21 in your program, starting on defense from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Captain K-Rod, how you doing? Good to see you. Errico from Calgary, how you doing, my man? Thanks for coming on in as we continue on with the roll call. Hi, Pam Harris. Human Carl is here, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Human Carl, thank you for your lovely service. We appreciate you, my friend. Algaray over on Twitch. Wanted to get so jacked up for Tom's show tonight. He did 1,200 sit-ups in 120 seconds. Yep, he was pushing hard. Terrence Wills is here. Terrence Wills will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Hi, Kurt M. How you doing? Marty Burback, good to see you. Millennium, my man, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. For years, she always wants me to say her name 3 times. I don't know, maybe it's a Beetlejuice thing. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got flannel. Matthew Goodka, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. As we continue on with roll call tonight, Dutch Hank, nice to see you. And Asteroid, thanks for coming on in. Scrolling on down, say hi to Christine Lynn, good to see you. Troy SR71, thanks for joining us. Looks like we are caught up. Oh, Grider. Grider is here. Welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for coming on in. And who else do we got? Reminder to all of you, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. And you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Why? Because we don't like ugly stuff there. No ugly stuff there as well. And Noble Patrick, good to see you. All right. It's almost time to get that radio side going. Hi, Jennifer Beveridge. How's it going? You ready for the snow? Feels like it's coming. Yes. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Tom Whitmore is here as the longtime ufologist. Will be talking about MJ-12. We're going to get into that here momentarily. We are in the middle of roll call as we speak. Well, actually near the end of roll call. Super crazy. How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. And we're just waiting for more people to roll in. There's Ozzy. Amanda Quinn, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat, Amanda. Amanda Quinn. Kim Burgess, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. All right. Just get comfy here. Get a little comfy here. Why not? Rain, nice to see you. Excuse me. And reminder to all of you, once again, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. No ugly swag. We do not have ugly swag. We got like 10 seconds until little Tommy Whitmore joins us. So let's sit back, relax, get comfy. And while you're doing that, throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rockin', Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our site as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're going deep into the Black Projects tonight. Former member of the MUFON Board of Directors, Tom Whitmore, is here as we talk MJ-12 momentarily. Then, in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller has a short but sweet story for us. Then little Timmy James is going to join us for the UFO report and get us all caught up on the UFO news. It's been a while since Tom Whitmore appeared on Spaced Out Radio. We last saw him and heard from him when we were in Reno for our annual fan party. Tom is a former board of director member of MUFON, but since then, he has been working diligently over the last number of years to try and figure out the mystery and mysterious MJ-12, known as Majestic 12. This is a theory that first came out around the early 1980s, that there was a secret group out there who knew just a little bit more than what they should about what's really being hidden behind the scenes of the U.S. government, especially when it comes to things like UFOs. Tom Whitmore, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How you been doing?
Just fine, Dave. Thank you for having me again. It's been a while. It's good to see you again.
Way too long. I'm so glad you're here. You've been doing well?
I'm doing fine. I'm spending my retirement years at this desk. I get up in the morning and I go through my beginning of day checklist, and then I start working on my research and writing project. And I hope someday to publish a book about the MJ-12 controversy, basically a history of it, along with my own thoughts of some things about the aspects of the subject of MJ-12. And I try to get in 4 solid hours a day. If you actually time yourself that you're actually working, it takes me almost all day to get 4 hours in. those are 4 solid hours of work, and that's what I do. At my advanced age, I don't last all day and all night, so sometimes I have to take a nap and take a little bit of rest, and then in the evening, I take it easy and enjoy myself.
Well, that's because in the evenings you have to put on the platform shoes, head down to the nightclub for an evening of festivities and dancing. We know what you're all about, Tom.
Yeah, I was the biggest partier in Reno, right?
Yes. Yes, you were. That
Yeah.
is why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I made you look bad.
Pardon me?
I made you look bad.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. The way you can cut a rug, the way you and Jackie Harmon were spinning around the dance floor at about 100 miles an hour, it was wonderful to watch. Absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Tom, you have a business background. You worked in economics and financing for a number of years. You got into the UFO story. How? What brought you to this world?
Well, I first became interested in UFOs at age 11 when I read a couple of books by Donald Kehoe. UFOs, top secret, and all that kind of thing. And I don't know, I've always had, and this is something I've had to kind of recognize in myself, but I've always had a certain gullibility factor. And when I read Donald Kehoe's books, I mean, I immediately believed it. And I mentioned it to my dad, who was a B-47 jet pilot, and he'd never seen a UFO. So he kind of poo-pooed the whole idea. But I'm a big book reader. I've read books all my life. I've read a lot of history. And when I was about 22, 23 years old, I really started reading a lot about espionage. And in the 80s, I read a lot about the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War and got into intelligence subjects. Then in 1988, I happened to turn on the TV and I saw the UFO Cover-Up Live program. And that really piqued my interest at the time. And then later that decade, I picked up a UFO magazine on a street corner, read that, and decided to become active in the UFO field. So I really seriously started reading up on the subject. And then when I saw the MJ-12 documents, my interest in espionage and intelligence and UFOs all intersected. Then I joined MUFON, and eventually I was asked to serve on the board, which I served on for many, many years. I do have a background in finance. I've been a financial institution CEO, and I've worked as a financial analyst for a local corporation here. And I do live here in San Antonio, Texas. So now in my retirement years, I'm devoting my time to trying to write a history of the MJ-12 controversy. Now, in the MJ-12 controversy, I'm not taking any particular position. I'm trying to take a middle of the road approach and try to see both sides. So I'm just as interested in hearing people that are critical of the MJ-12 subject as I am from people that are pro MJ-12.
Going back to your time as a kid getting into this subject to where you are now, you've seen ufology go from tinfoil hat conspiracy to plausibility and now potentially reality with what's happening in the UFO world, not just in the United States, but around the world. How have you seen this shift take place, and what's your thoughts of it?
Well, from my perspective, Dave, I can divide modern UFO history, which is UFO history since World War II. And the first phase occurred until around 1980. As we all know, that there were many, many UFO sightings. There was a certain amount of suspicion in UFO circles that the government was not being forthcoming about what they knew about the subject. But things changed in the 1980s when William Moore was recruited by Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and he was recruited to inform on certain UFO groups and on several UFO researchers. And he agreed to do that in hopes that he would be able to get some inside information about what the government knew about UFOs. And that started this whole trend that still exists today, that UFO people think they're being monitored by the government. And they tend to see conspiracies even when there aren't any conspiracies. And then the third phase began in 2017 when the article in the New York Times came out, and this whole business about disclosure kicked off. And since 2017, I think it's brought in a whole new generation of people, many of them young, who have taken an interest in the subject because they believe or feel that disclosure is on the way.
Do you think disclosure is on its way?
No. Not that I don't want it to. I want disclosure as much as anybody, but I've got a lot of problems with the possibility. Now, I will give Lou Elizondo credit for saying that the disclosure movement, the disclosure effort is a long-term thing. It's going to take a long time. But do we want to talk about this right now or save it till later? I can give you a number of reasons.
Well, let's just get into it right now, because I'm going to fill you in on something that I did today for the sake of our audience. I actually rescinded today via email my request to interview Lou Elizondo.
Okay.
So I'll read you what I sent, because I'm not about to hold this back from our audience. And let's see here. It says, let me just bring it up. It says, to this lady named Julie from HarperCollins and her partner Heidi. They run the PR team, and this was also CC'd to Lou. I said, hi, Julie. I am emailing you to rescind Spaced Out Radio's request for an interview with Mr. Lou Elizondo. As a person who's worked in media and broadcasting for 26 years, I've been nothing but disappointed in the way this PR group has handled my request for time with Mr. Elizondo, who is a friend of the show. From the time we started speaking, months before Imminent came out publicly, we were told we'd work out a time to get Mr. Elizondo on SOR. In fact, it was your group that stated you wanted to have him on our show the first week the book came out. Then there were scheduling changes after scheduling changes, with now there being no timeline as to when Mr. Elizondo may or may not appear on my show. I had stated to you before that we are not a podcast. We are a live terrestrial radio show with thousands of subscribers and listeners combined who wanted to hear Mr. Elizondo speak about his book. However, it's disappointing to see other programs with far fewer listeners and subscribers get interviews prior to us. Therefore, I would like to show you the professional courtesy in stating that I will no longer be looking forward to an interview with Mr. Elizondo on his book to my audience. My audience deserves better treatment than this. We understand the inundated schedule that Mr. Elizondo has kept throughout his book tour. We are proud to have acknowledged his book and the importance of it several times on our program. We are also gracious enough to give your PR firm the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, we feel it is now too late to have Mr. Elizondo talk about his book with any impact to our audience. Thank you for understanding. If Mr. Elizondo wishes or chooses to pursue an interview with Spaced Out Radio and myself, we'd be happy to oblige him with his request and opportunity. But as for right now, we are no longer interested in dealing with this PR firm regarding Imminent. Our audience holds us to the highest of standards, and in this case, we feel it is best for them to move forward without an interview. Thank you for your time and best gratitude. Dave Scott, host and owner of Spaced Out Radio. That's what I did today, Tom.
So, Dave, what does that tell you about disclosure or our prospects for disclosure?
Well, it's twofold. Number one, I understand that they want to get him on as many television and top line radio shows that are on terrestrial broadcast as much as possible. Then they move to the online, where he did Joe Rogan. He did, other big named podcasters out there that are in the top 10, top 100, wherever. I'm not saying we're in that level. Okay. But when I saw him doing interviews with other people in ufology who have way less following than we do, that's where I knew the jig was up. Our audience, Tom, you've known our audience for a long time. They're smart. They're very smart. And they're educated. And they are supporters of this community, the good, the bad, and the not so good. Okay? They are brilliant. My audience deserves something that's going to be good for them. So this isn't, and we've known this for a while, this isn't about getting ufology out there. It's about selling books.
Mhm.
Okay. And when you have, say, he goes on Joe Rogan Experience, which has millions upon millions of views every episode, of course you're going to choose them over what we do. But if you look at who he has tackled in ufology, none of the big shows outside of George Knapp on Coast have got him. Why? This is your bread and butter to the community. And if I get the chance to talk to Elizondo again, and I hope I do, okay, and I'm sure I will, I do want to say to him, do you remember what happened with TTSA, where we had a conversation about biting the hand that feeds you? That's what they did. They bit the hand that feeds them. And I'm not going to put my audience into a position where, whether you love Elizondo or not, that's irrelevant. My job is to try and get the guest. Okay. Whether I agree with the guest or not, it's my job to do that. And I think, Tom, that our audience at this time has heard so many different interviews with Elizondo of the same questions over and over. Are aliens real? Are UFOs real? Where are they hiding this stuff? Are there little green men? Is it Area 51? Do they really do that? I mean, it's the same amateur questions over and over again. And the monotony of it all, I know in talking to many of our audience members privately, it's like, don't even bother. Don't even bother. It's not worth it. What's your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, I think people keep asking the same questions over and over because nobody's getting any answers. And there are basically two things that can be true. Either the United States government has proof, and for me, disclosure is show us the saucer or saucers, show us the bodies, or show us unambiguous photographs or gun camera films and or data that's indisputable. That to me is disclosure. We're not getting that. We're simply not. Now, on the government side, they say, well, we can't prove that we don't have anything. But there's simply too much history, and a lot of it, admittedly, is hearsay. And that's a lot of the criticism that we get from what I call the contrarians, that it's all hearsay and there's no physical proof. But, the government is a different animal. The government classifies most everything. I mean, the government classifies so much information and has been doing that since World War II that we largely don't even know what our own history is because so much of the information is secret. So, I think we keep getting the same questions over and over because people aren't getting any answers over and over.
And I agree with you. But when you have people, Tom, who are interviewing him, who have no clue about this subject or are patsies to whatever Elizondo does, these are the type of people who would make sure there's a towel at the sink after he's gone to the bathroom to wash his hands. You know what I'm saying? They will towel off his hands. They are cult followers. And I'm not saying that to be insultive. That's a reality to it. Many of these people, and they don't want to. It's not about asking tough questions. Everybody thinks you have to ask hard, tough questions. Tom, whether you're asking about MJ-12 or you're asking about Elizondo, hard questions, tough questions, okay, yeah, they're great. But you know what works better? A well-informed question. A well-informed question that actually has some clout to it. That's what's not being asked of Lou or many people in ufology, but they've clicked up so much, Tom. It's become such a click that you can't get in that door unless they give you the key.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
I think we have to remember that if I've got my history right, I think it was Lou Elizondo that gave Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal the interview for the New York Times article that came out in 2017, and then you had the rollout of TTSA, the To the Stars Academy. And To the Stars Academy, I think probably the personnel that were on the stage probably weren't well known to the general public, except maybe Tom DeLonge. But the overall pattern created an impression that Lou Elizondo knew something and that he had credibility and that he was going to disclose something. And I think that created a huge expectation in people. And immediately, Lou Elizondo became rather hard to contact or get with. You can't, a lot of people can't just call him up and have a conversation and talk things over. And that, I think that creates some of the frustration that you're talking about.
Well, you know what? Lou knows how to get a hold of me. I want to ask him some serious questions. He alluded to the fact that he saw things. Nobody asked him, what did you see? Did you have a face-to-face encounter with a UFO or extraterrestrial? And if he says, I can't speak of that, okay, off the job, did you have in your personal life an encounter? Why haven't we asked that? Why hasn't anybody asked that? That's just an example, right? There's a lot of, I could go through a Rolodex, but it would eat up the rest of the time. But it just goes to show how controlled this message and this narrative is right now, Tom. And it's uncomfortable.
Well, and I don't want to be too hard on him or any other people that, have worked inside of government. They've worked on classified programs. They've taken secrecy oath. They've signed their lives away, and they could face, punishment if they break those oaths and those agreements. So the pattern that I've seen with Lou Elizondo and others like him, and I don't mean to pick on him particularly, but is that they can only discuss this up to a point, and
yes.
then they have to kind of drop it and not go any further, and that's created a lot of suspicion, especially under who I call the contrarians, who think that he's up to something nefarious or he's not completely honest or any of that. And I've heard it more than once that Hal Puthoff has mentioned that he signed so many security agreements he doesn't know what he can talk about. So that is part of the problem.
Well, when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, Tom, we're going to get heavy into MJ-12. I want you to educate our audience on this entire subject, because you being a historian, you being a lead researcher into this topic, I want you to open up our minds and blow it open regarding what it is, what it's all about, because it's been a long time since we talked MJ-12 on Spaced Out Radio, and it's time to have a good one with you. Tom Whitmore is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return, we're going to get heavy into it. What is MJ-12? What is Majestic 12? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Where did it come from? UFO. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, Tom, we're clear.
Okay.
Hi, Dirty Filth. He must have stepped away. Probably did. You having fun so far, Tom?
Oh yeah, I love this. Love being here.
Rock and
I can
roll.
talk. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk MJ-12 and UFOs, I can talk all night.
Oh, we'll talk some UFOs. That's for sure. We'll talk about everything. I want to get into MJ-12. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Looking forward to it. Joe says Dave Scott is the 13th member of MJ-12.
That's right.
Thanks, Joe. Oh, where'd Dirty Filth go? He just disappeared. He vanished. Like a fart in the wind. What movie line's that from, people? He just vanished. Like a fart in the wind. That's right, Super Crazy. The Shawshank Redemption. Richard, I'm doing good. Hey, big thank you to underscore Maddie. Sent me this great plaid shirt with the greatest rock band ever on it. Geez, right there. Guns N' Roses. You know, I'm just, God, why is this so hard? Right there, including the back with the band. And this really cool alien, this knitted alien. Talk about little green men. Woo, 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 woo. I'm going to hang this up somewhere. Probably like right here or something. Right there. Right there. Right here. Somewhere. We'll get it. Maybe we'll just stand him right there. Can you see him there? Yeah, we'll just put him right there. That works. Greatest rock band ever, Guns N' Roses. Just letting you all know.
I'm a big Cheap Trick fan.
I like Cheap Trick. I know. You always get good concerts down there, though, Tom.
Oh yeah, but you know, all the people from my generation are getting so old. They've either retired or they're too old really to watch anymore.
I know, but they're still good.
Well, I took my wife and daughter to see Cheap Trick, and it was so loud. It just, all the sound ran together. I saw them way back in like 1977 when they first came out, and they were backing up Kansas at the time, and took me years before I really appreciated them.
We have a blob alert, people. We have a blob alert. Where'd you go, Dirty Filth?
I had to fix the configurations and everything because something went weird and the camera stopped working. And then Blob showed up. So
nice.
Blob's good luck.
That's right. Hi, Magnus for Magnuson. Pony Pong, how are you? Kason Lee, how are you? Tom, watch out, ladies, because Tom wears a T-shirt that says, I want you to want me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a big alien on it.
Yeah, I wish.
Thank you to Richard. Thank you to Simon. Thank you to Human Carl for the super chats. We are on Blob Alert as we speak. We have achieved blobness. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. We're going to find out what MJ-12 is all about. Tom Whitmore is our guest. We'll bring him back momentarily. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in as we bring the woo to you each and every night. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're also on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon at Spaced Out Radio. Tom Whitmore is here, researcher, independent, looking in to the elusive MJ-12. We're going to get heavy deep into this now. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. Glad to be here.
For our audience who may not know what MJ-12 or Majestic 12 is, give us a description.
Okay. In the 1980s, apparently the Defense Intelligence Agency, working through AFOSI, was conducting some kind of counterintelligence program. And in the process of that, a leading UFO researcher by the name of William Moore was recruited by Richard Doty, who's a well-known person in the field now, to inform on mainly APRO and other UFO groups and organizations and several individuals. Now, Bill Moore did that in order to, he had the hopes of getting some inside information about what the government really knew about UFOs. So when this whole thing started, there's a person by the name of Paul Benowitz who lived right next to Kirtland Air Force Base. And Paul Benowitz was seeing things going on over the base at night, and he was taking photographs. He was a scientific kind of guy, and he had a firm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that had government contracts, and they made humidity monitoring equipment for submarines. So here was this scientific kind of a guy, and he was taking electronic recording electronic signals from Kirtland Air Force Base. And he approached the base authorities and said, "Look, I'm seeing UFOs on this base." So this whole program started partly against Paul Benowitz, and there are a number of reasons for that I really don't have time to go into now. But in the process of that, Paul Benowitz had provided a number of photographs to AFOSI, and they sent it to Washington, D.C. to have them analyzed. And in return, AFOSI received a telex, which I refer to as the Aquarius telex. And it goes over some of the photographs that were analyzed. And it mentions a Project Aquarius, and that was the first mention of MJ-12, MJ-12. Then a little bit later, a document was put in front of Linda Howe by Richard Doty on AFOSI. And I assume that Richard Doty was doing this under orders. He had the rank of Master Sergeant, even though at the time he was a certified, qualified AFOSI special agent. And he showed this document to Linda Howe, apparently under monitoring circumstances. They had a two-way mirror in the room, and Linda Howe saw this document, which I refer to as the Carter briefing document. And it mentions in MJ-12, and it mentions a lot of the rumors that started in the 80s about aliens and deep government involvement and knowledge about it. And it mentions several projects like Project Red Light, for example. So Moore goes on and he keeps developing these contacts on the inside, well, what seemed like the inside at the time, that we now know as the aviary. People like Hal Puthoff and Kit Green, John Alexander, just to name a few. He was developing these contacts, and he had a research associate by the name of Jamie Shanderay. And Jamie Shanderay was kind of like a film editor. He worked as a film editor in Hollywood. And in 1984, Jamie Shanderay received a package, several envelopes, and inside those envelopes was a roll of 35 millimeter film. And Shanderay and Moore were working together, and they went over to Moore's office, and they developed this film. And on that film were two documents. The first one I refer to as the Eisenhower briefing document, and the second, the Truman-Forrestal memo. In the Eisenhower briefing document, they mention that, well, the whole thrust of the thing, and there's some other extraneous information, but the main thrust of the thing is that a UFO crashed and was recovered near Roswell, New Mexico, and that alien bodies were recovered. And this being such a big deal in 1947, that Truman authorized the formation of this group known as MJ-12 or Majestic 12, the Majestic 12. And the list of people on that committee were very high level military, scientific, and government people. And there were 12 names listed. Then that summer, now Moore and Shanderay, they were sitting on this because they thought, oh my God, we've gotten this really big inside information. We've got to investigate this. And they didn't make it public at the time. They investigated it, tried to research what they saw in the document. The document, it looked official to kind of naive UFO types who don't work in the government. It looked very official. And that summer, they had been getting a lot of hints that there was another document. So they went to the National Archives in Maryland this is 1985, okay? And they went through, I think it was record group 141, 142, something like that, of the Air Force. They went through a lot of boxes, and in between two files, they found this third document, which is now known as the Cutler-Twining Memo. And it was a carbon copy of a memorandum to General Twining, who was very high in the Air Force at the time. And it was an advice that the MJ-12 Special Studies Project meeting would occur during the regular meeting, not afterwards at the White House. So that was the third document that showed up. So this was the core. These are what I call the original set of MJ-12 documents, and that's where this whole idea of the special committee to study the UFO problem was formed. And nobody in the UFO field had ever heard of MJ-12 before that. So this was new. And when it became public in 1987, then and as the information began to seep into the UFO culture in the 1980s, then it made a really big impression on UFO thinking, and it's never really been the same since then. Now, I left out the fact that in the 70s, William Moore and Stanton Friedman had researched the Roswell incident, and they interviewed over 90 people associated with the Roswell incident. And Moore had come out with this book, The Roswell Incident, in 1980, co-authored with Charles Berlitz. So this whole trend of Roswell and crash saucers and alien bodies began, in the 1980s, and it's going on up to the present day. Now, I will say that, in my opinion, the MJ-12 controversy has been going on actually up to the present year, because in the 1990s, the Timothy Cooper documents began to come into play. And Timothy Cooper was a private researcher who had received several batches of documents from what were apparently retired CIA people. And another document known as the Psalm 1-01 manual appeared during the 90s. And it was an alleged manual of procedures to follow in recovering UFOs and shipping alien bodies. And then in the 2000s, we had the Serpo story come out, which were a number of emails that described a story in which there was an exchange program between the United States and these Ebens, who were the Roswell Ebens. And the Ebens wanted to pick up their dead. And then the Americans trained, I think it was somewhere between 12 and 18 people. A couple of them may have been female, depending on the story you listen to, in exchange. And they traveled to this, as the story goes, to this planet Serpo. And they lived there actually for about 12 years. It took them a little over 13 years to get back, according to the stories. So these things were still going on. And then after the year 2000, a book came out called Exempt from Disclosure. And I neglected to mention the UFO Cover-Up live program, which came out in October 98, or I'm sorry, not October 1988. And there was a description of how the government was deeply involved in UFOs. And you had these two characters in background and with their voices altered, known as Falcon and Condor. And Condor, who was Robert Collins of the Air Force, he came out with this book, Exempt from Disclosure, I think in 2005, and it had a lot of interesting information in it. We also had a person by the name of Dan Burisch, or Dan Crane, come out and claim to have worked on Area 51 in deep secrecy with this alien that was referred to as J-Rod. Then in 2017, we had a document appear on the internet, which I call the Ultra Top Secret document, and it was released by Heather Wade. And then even this year, we've had this character come out. His name is Charlie. I refer to him as Charlie Whistleblower. He's actually in prison, but he released this manifesto. It's about 45 pages, and it mentions MJ-12. And this Charlie person claims to have been recruited by an AFOSI special agent when Charlie was a teenager. And this AFOSI special agent showed him all of these secret documents about the U.S. government's involvement in the UFO problem. And when this came out, Richard Doty has been, he's been pretty public in his comments about things. And Richard Doty says that he has, contacts that he works with they're working on disclosure, and they checked these DoD databases. Now, the Department of Defense and the intelligence agencies, they keep indexes of people that have been recruited or have worked with them, on an unofficial basis. And that this Charlie person showed up in two databases. So Richard Doty said that this Charlie was a subject of a project called Society Hike, in which AFOSI or the government or the intelligence agencies were recruiting young people to later serve in some capacity in whatever project or whatever reason they were doing this for. So I mention all that to point out that this has really been a long-term thing. It started in 1980, and in my opinion, it's still going on today.
There's a lot of names that you set out there, whether it's Rick Doty or John Alexander or Hal Puthoff and many others, including members of the aviary, who many have questioned their authenticity throughout this entire program. How do we know that these people are talking the truth about the existence of MJ-12?
Well, most of them are not pushing MJ-12. The group, a very small group, the Woods, Robert Wood, who unfortunately is now deceased, and his son Ryan, are the most pro MJ-12 advocates out there. And Ryan has a wonderful website on the internet where you can go and you can actually see most all of the MJ-12 documents. And his father, Bob Wood, who I consider to be a dear friend, and I knew him for years on the MUFON board, he and his dad did a lot of good research about MJ-12. But in my opinion, they never established any direct confirmation of it from any government documentation. They pulled a lot of interesting documents from the National Archives, and they did good research and comparing handwriting and typewriter fonts and all that kind of thing. But other people like Richard Doty, the thing about Richard Doty is, and I have certain problems because a lot of this history occurred 40 years ago. And two of probably the most important sources that could be approached are now deceased, so they can't be approached. They're deceased. They can't be approached, and I can't get to them. And Stanton Friedman's passed away. He did a lot of research, but in my opinion, he never established any confirmation of MJ-12. Paul Benowitz passed away in 2003. Some of the people that were involved won't cooperate, or they're unavailable. For example, William Moore, he's in the, in his later years, he absolutely refuses to discuss anything about UFOs, period. Timothy Cooper, he's not cooperative and non-responsive, and he insists that MJ-12 didn't exist, never existed. And then Jamie Chandray has been out of pocket for a long time. I think I was talking with Don Schmidt, and Don said that he had seen him in the 1990s. But Jamie Chandray, the last we heard, was living in South America. So it's hard to get to the people that were actually involved in the affair during the 1980s.
The point of this project was what? To cover up UFOs, to cover up Roswell?
Well, there are a lot of possibilities. Like I said, the government decided to, in the 1980s, for whatever reason, they decided to embark on a counterintelligence program. Not that they hadn't been doing it before, but there were things were going on. We were in a very hot Cold War with the Soviet Union about nuclear disarmament and things. And the so-called Star Wars program was going on. Stealth aircraft were being developed. And other things were going on that we probably don't know about that were highly classified and very, very tightly held. So one of AFOSI's functions is to protect these classified programs on Air Force bases. Now, AFOSI is the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and they're basically the FBI of the Air Force. And they mostly just investigate ordinary type crimes, theft or drugs on Air Force bases and that kind of thing. But according to Richard Doty, they do have this counterintelligence functions. So the fact is that one of the first things that occurred during this whole sequence in the 1980s was they set up Bill Moore to inform on APRO, the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. And if we go back to the 1950s, there was an event that occurred called the Robertson Panel, and they created a report. They had several high-level scientists, even Alan Hynek was there, and they went over several UFO cases, and they decided, at least officially, that UFOs were not a national security threat, and they weren't a scientific subject to be studied. However, they felt that there was a possibility that if we got into a wartime situation, particularly against the Soviets, that our communication channels might get jammed if UFOs were used as a means to distract the military and the government and the American public. So in the Robertson Panel report, they recommended that, now this is the 1950s, but they recommended that UFO groups be monitored, and they specifically referred to APRO. Okay, so in 1980, here we have this situation where Bill Moore is recruited by AFOSI, and he's supposed to inform on APRO, and he probably informed on MUFON and so on and so forth, and other UFO groups.
Tom, this rabbit hole of MJ-12 and the players and what it is all about is so difficult to find information on. I know you and I have talked privately about this, and you've struggled with this at times, trying to find who to talk to and where to dig. How difficult of a process has this been for you, as we got about 2.5 minutes to go before we got to go to break, to find this information?
Well, there are a couple of good aspects to it. I work, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to say I'm a great investigator, like a great private investigator, and I'm just one guy. I don't have a secretary. I don't have any people working for me, doing research for me, or, following things up. I do have a little bit of a network of people that I admire their work and they admire mine, and we help each other to the extent that we can. But most 95% of everything I work with is open source information that you can mostly get off the internet. Now, one of the good things about the MJ-12 subject, the MJ-12 controversy, is there is a lot of literature out there. There are books like Greg Bishop's Project Beta and Christian Lambright's Ex Descending. There's Bill Moore's MJ-12 documents and analytical report. There's Stan Friedman's book, Top Secret Magic, and then a lot of other information. And I've been fortunate, for example, Barry Greenwood sent me his MJ-12 file, and you can almost write a history of the MJ-12 controversy in the 80s based on what Barry Greenwood has sent me. It's got all kinds of really valuable, letters and documents and newsletters and so on and so forth. Another good thing is that certain really very skilled researchers and archivists have listed a lot of things on the internet. So, you can get a lot of information from that. Now, like I said, some people will cooperate. They will cooperate with me. For example, I've talked to Colonel Richard Weaver, who came out with a Roswell report in the 90s that said it was a mogul balloon. I've talked with him. There are people that will cooperate and will talk, but the most important people won't. And that's the irony of it all.
Why won't they talk, Tom?
Well, Bill Moore dropped out of the UFO field in the late 90s. He was working really hard on the MJ-12 problem, but he got a lot of opposition, got a lot of criticism, especially from Barry Greenwood and Phil Klass. And then the fact that he was he was working with Richard Doty as an informant during the 80s. This left a bad taste with a lot of people. So Bill Moore dropped out of the UFO field in the 90s, and he never came back. He
Tom,
did
hold it
publish.
right there. Hold it right there, because we're going to get deeper into this when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Tom Whitmore is here for another great hour of MJ-12 talk. We'll take some of your questions as well. Tom Whitmore.
This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
All right, Tom, we have about 6.5 minutes. We're going to turn things over to the dirty one. So, by the way, Filthy, did you get to boop Blob for us?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Blob is happy. All the other cats are happy mostly. Let's see what's going on in the old chat room here. Move around the stuff because I don't have 16 televisions like Dave Ruby has. Hello, Mark Sanchez. Ooh, I hope you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt of some sort. Even hole has no bottom. Well, pretty much every hole has a bottom. Otherwise, it's a donut. So yes, I just decided to draw a cartoon of a UFO floating around because everybody's going on these last minute vacations and junk. So, I mean, why not take a UFO? Hello, Rob. Hello, Jessica S. Tim Jones. James Jones. Bloody hell. Mrs. Filth made me sick the other day, so I'm all hawked up on neocitrin and junk. Got booted off the internet. Yeah, well, that'll learn you there. Data differentiations. Yeah, well, anyways. Blah. Can't believe Dave's leaving me here. Should have mentioned. Should mention also that my calendar will be out at the end of the month. Well, start of the month, end of the month. It's time's irrelevant, basically. In November, the calendar will be ready. Excuse me. It'll be shipped out, and if you're lucky, maybe it'll get there before Christmas. Who knows? Aliens, nuclear warfare. Types of strange things could happen at that point in time. And on top of that, oh, weird to get some super feedback. Super feedback. Too bad we couldn't get a pizza in 25 years in the future for free. Super feedback. Too bad we couldn't get a pizza in 25 years in the future for free. Super feedback. Too bad we couldn't get a pizza in 25 years in the future for free. Super feedback. Too bad we couldn't get a pizza in 25 years in the future for free. Just gonna mute myself. Super feedback. Too bad we couldn't get a pizza in 25 years in the future for free. Just gonna mute myself. Super feedback. Susan and I will place the link as soon as it's available. I had some discrepancies happening, and my would try to squish the painting down or the calendar down to a proper size because there's some strange things about printing, like bleeding, which I don't know about. So, anyways, it'll be available. I'll definitely plug it. I'll bug Dave to plug it too. But yes, I'm not a super expert on the technical side of stuff. One of my best pals in the entire universe. It's taken care of on their side. So I just hand in all my artwork and junk, and they deal with it, and it comes out nice on the end. Apparently, this is, I think, my 4th calendar. I don't remember doing 4 calendars. It's just one seemingly massive cartoons from day to day. And next thing you know, you got a mountain of them, and cats jump on it, and it's falling all over the place, and cats are flailing and trying to catch the cats, catch the artwork, and it's a mess. And next thing you know, I'm shredded up and bleeding because of all the cats clawing me trying to escape. But if they wouldn't jump on top of mountains of artwork, it wouldn't have fallen over in the first place. So, oh yeah, here comes the. What do we got here? Oh, we got a blob. Oh, a blob.
We have more blobbing.
Well, she said, "Screw that," and walked away. I'm not going to go snatch her, Dave. She's like 9,000 years old. He curses for that kind of thing.
Oh, well, hold on a second here. Sweet Robbie G is acting up in the chat room again. So I'm just going to, put my New York Yankees hat on right there. Let's go Yankees. We're going to win this one.
Don't the Yankees always win? Isn't that just a giver?
Well, you would think, but it's Sweet Robbie G. He has dreams. Beelzebrad has a devil put aside for me. How you doing, buddy? Fapperoni, good to see you. Hi, Nina Williams. And let's see here. Here we go. All right, here comes hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. New York Yankees. New York Yankees is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Yankees go on to face the Dodgers. The stinking no good ought to be tossed out of the Major League Baseball Dodgers each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Tom Whitmore is here. Tom, Yankees or Dodgers? Which way are you leaning?
Oh, I'm a Yankees guy. When I was a little boy, I worshipped Mickey Mantle. He was like my hero. And your New York Yankees hat looks well worn, Dave.
It is. It is. I bought this new, and I have worn this everywhere. Everywhere, Tom. And I haven't washed it. I haven't cleaned it, and it fits perfectly. It always fits perfectly.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. You got to go with what works, Tom. Yep. You got to go with what works.
I've got some old hats myself.
Before we get going too far here, I want to go to JSCO, who has a question for you. I remember Dwight Eisenhower as president. Can you please elaborate on Dan Burisch? I have read about him. Very interesting. He pushed J-Rod into a portal and sent him home.
Okay. Yeah, Dan Burisch, and I think his name is Dan Crane. He made a lot of claims that he was a biologist and that he worked in Area 51, and I use that as kind of a generic term, in a very specialized area that was especially created for this creature that has been known as J-Rod. Now, this is he's claiming these things, okay? And J-Rod was, quote, to quote UFO Cover-Up Live, he was a guest of the United States government. But J-Rod had to live in a room, maybe a sphere, if it's true, that was specially designed for him, for his biology and physiology. And this creature, J-Rod, was having physical problems. I'm not exactly sure what the problem was, but this Dan Burisch person claimed that he was there to help with it. And I have a friend who's done a lot of research on Dan Burisch, and he's collected a lot of information on him, and some of his information checks out, but some of it doesn't. Some of it doesn't make any sense. Like, he was working on this super secret project, but then going back and forth to New York, I think, to get his degrees and all this. And I have a contact who I'm not going to name, but a contact that located his apartment in Las Vegas, and Dan Burisch was working as a security guard. So it's kind of hard to make the argument that you're a member of MJ-12 or very close to it when you're working as a security guard and you live in a rundown apartment. I also did I came into the possession of a document that I think that the Woods had, and they wanted someone to analyze it because it had a lot of technical biological information in the report. And it was this official looking report, had MJ-12 on the top and all this. Well, I happen to have someone who is, I don't want to describe who it is, but this person has a PhD in biochemistry, genetics, and all of this. And I turned it over to him, and he analyzed it, and he came back with a lot of things wrong with the document that just didn't make sense in terms of someone who was in that field. The way that it would be written, the terminology, some of the technical kind of references. And the best analogy I can give you is that in finance, when you're talking about dollars and cents, you have $101.25, say, and that would be like writing a memo or an email or a finance paper about 101.50, but carrying out to 6 decimal places. You just don't do that in ordinary parlance. And that's analogously, that's a kind of thing that my contact saw in this document. So the Dan Burisch story is, like all of the MJ-12 stories, is very interesting. It's very intriguing, but it's got a lot of problems with it.
Do you believe, Tom, that MJ-12 is meant to be maybe a ruse to lead people on? Or do you believe there's actually something to it that defines what is being hidden in ufology, some of the darkest secrets of it all?
Well, it could have more than one purpose. And the trend in my own research is in the direction of the notion that some of the MJ-12 documents, and they're mostly in the Timothy Cooper category, that some, if not most of them, were disinformation that was created by James Angleton's counterintelligence department in the CIA. And the purpose of that might have been to fool the Soviets into thinking that we had something that we didn't really have. Then on the other hand, when you get into the original set of the MJ-12s in the 1980s that Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray got a hold of, it could have been that they were trying to create some kind of a diversion to get a typical a typical tactic in intelligence when you're dealing with an adversary is if the other side's getting too close to the truth, what you do is you flood the information channel with a lot of nonsense, and you give them just enough information to hold their interest, but you keep them running in directions that are going to be unproductive. So in the case of Moore and company, the original set may have been to pique their interest and send them on a wild goose chase trying to look up all these people and research all these facts and items in the document. On the other hand, it is possible that if Roswell is true and real, that it served the double purpose of getting this out into the public, that this thing was really true, and to introduce it into the public domain. That's another possibility.
Is it meant for public consumption?
Yeah, I think the original set was, because, like I said, Bill Moore and Chandray received the original set in December of 1984, and then the summer of 1985 they discovered the Cutler-Twining memo. But Moore didn't release the MJ-12 papers until May of 1987. So he sat on them for 2.5 years. And, that in a way that was responsible from his point of view of trying to research it, trying to vet it. But if the intelligence people were trying to get this information out in the public, then it might have been frustrating for them.
Do you look at this whole subject in general as there is something there, Tom? Do you look at it, and I know you've been spending years looking at it, you believe that there is something to this, but have you found the answers that you're looking for to prove the existence that this project really, truly existed?
Well, there are a couple of ways to look at it, Dave, because I'm a UFO believer, and I've read enough material, and I'm aware of enough information that I feel like I have good reason to believe that there's something to this whole idea that the government has recovered one or more UFOs and alien beings and all that. That it's very, very tightly held. It's very secret. They don't allow that information to be publicly acknowledged. But on the other hand, there were some other things going on, because during the Cold War in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they were improving radar. The government was developing ballistic missiles. We had General LeMay developing the whole Strategic Air Command with all these B-52 bombers, and radar came into play. And there was such a thing as the ability to create false radar returns. And those false radar returns were referred to in the public domain as phantom aircraft, but probably really should have been referred to as UFOs or fake UFOs. So you get into a wartime situation where you have the extremely high risks of nuclear war or of nuclear tactical nuclear detonations, and you're dealing with issues like using radar or using instrumentation to create false radar returns to fake out the adversary. And I think there is a possibility that MJ-12 may have been related to that or partly related to that. And I think we need to remember that at the time in the 50s and 60s, when the Cold War was such a huge issue, that if they were able to create these false radar returns and they were able to detect for example, Soviet radars, by say flying a U-2 over there or by through some other means, that this was super secret stuff, because you don't want the enemy to know what your capabilities are. And it could have been the kind of level of super secrecy that we associate with MJ-12. And it's a mystery, because it could be both, or it could be one or the other, either, UFOs or, this electronic countermeasures kind of an issue.
Can you go into detail a little bit about the Cutler twinning memo or twining memo, please?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, the Cutler twining memo was discovered at the National Archives. And like I said, Moore and Chandray had been getting hints on postcards. And also they got a tip from Stanton Friedman, who was working with them at the time. And Stanton Friedman said that this whole new batch of Air Force material was being declassified. So they went to the National Archives and they went through all these boxes. And in one of the boxes, between two file folders, they found this document known as that we call the Cutler twining memo. And the memo referred to a meeting at the White House, some kind of a high-level meeting, but it was simply instructing General Twining, who was very high in the Air Force, that the MJ-12 Special Studies Project meeting would occur during the regular meeting and not afterwards. Now, the Cutler Twining memo is a copy. I've held it in my hands. I've gone to the National Archive and held it in my hands. The type font is blue. It's blue in color, so it looks from an amateur point of view like mine, it looks like a carbon copy. But it's unsigned, and it was purportedly written by James Cutler, who was White House advisor, but it was unsigned. And at the time, Cutler was out of the country. I think he was in Europe doing something. So that's one of the problems with the Cutler twining memo. And Stanton Friedman has, he's responded to a lot of the criticisms about it, saying that when Cutler went out of town, that he left his assistant James Lay with instructions to keep his inbox material moving forward. Now, here's another problem. The document was between two file folders, and I've been to the National Archives and I've gone through boxes of folders, and all the documents are in file folders. There's nothing stuck in between them. And this implies that somebody went into the archives and inserted this paper. Now, we have to remember that when Moore and Chandray went through this material, the archives, even though they had some security, this is in the 1980s, they didn't have near the strict security that they have now. And one of the problems that the archives has is people trying to walk off with stuff, and taking it out. So I actually had lunch with the archival supervisor that was involved in it. And this person told me that there's no way that, the men in black could have come into the back room and stuck that thing in there. But with not quite so strict security that they had then, it's possible that somebody could have walked into the archives, ordered the boxes and then inserted it, into the file box. Now, I did file a request for the orders of the boxes that occurred when Moore and Chandray did that. In other words, if I could get a documented record of who ordered this material when, then I might be able to get a better establishment of what happened. But it was so long ago, they didn't have those records anymore. So this archival supervisor, they went out, the National Archives went out and tried to find if MJ-12 existed. Did any other government agency have anything on it? And accordingly, they say that they didn't find anything on MJ-12, and or at least nobody would admit it publicly. And there's actually a memorandum attached to the Cutler-Twining memo in the archives stating this, that they couldn't find any confirmation of MJ-12 or of this meeting or any of this. So it may be the only document in the National Archives that has a memorandum attached to it that says that it may not be authentic.
Oh my. Do you think it's authentic? What's your opinion?
I don't know if the document is authentic, but it may have pointed to a real situation. Just like the Eisenhower briefing document. See, there are two issues: the authenticity of the document itself and whether the subject matter exists or not. So, a document can be phony, the documents can be phony, but that doesn't necessarily mean that MJ-12 didn't exist. Okay. I mean, I could write a phony letter about you, Dave, and that doesn't mean you don't exist. So, and same thing, vice versa. So I think sometimes certain people get the issues mixed up, and they think, well, the MJ-12 documents were a hoax, therefore MJ-12 never existed, and I don't think it's ever been established one way or the other.
Moving on to the fact that there's a lot of alien talk in this, whether it's Roswell, whether it's J-Rod. Do you believe that this does tie to some sort of ET contact within this program?
Personally, yes, I do. I do believe that. Because I think that there's something to it. And when you have, Grush coming out and saying that it's true, as an example, that just points to the fact that they're really, by this time, after all of this occurring since 1947, there have to have been a lot of people that touched on this issue one way or another. And assuming that it exists, that the conditions exist, the information is very compartmented. So, scientists might get some material and they don't say where it came from. They're not told where it came from. They're asked to work on it, and that's all they know. Or somebody, maybe a guard, walks into the wrong airplane hangar at the wrong time and sees something. But I don't know if there was ever an MJ-12 committee, but it certainly was a matrix of very high-level people in different that would have dealt with this.
You mentioned Linda Moulton Howe and Stanton Friedman believe the documents to be authentic. Have you had a chance to talk to Linda Moulton Howe about this?
I haven't. There were a couple of times when she showed up to speak at MUFON symposiums, but Linda Howe is a little bit like Elizondo in that everybody wants to talk to her, and I'm pretty sure her research is under a paywall, and I have to be kind of selective about the things that I subscribe to. And just like in the advertisements, I probably have more subscriptions that I really should have. But I would love to talk with Linda Howe. For one thing, Richard Doty claims that Linda Howe actually interviewed and met the last surviving member of the Serpo team that went to the planet Serpo. And he's very complimentary of her in terms of research, because she is pretty darn good. She's trained as a journalist, and she is pretty darn good at turning up or making connections with sources. And part of the activities that were occurring during the 1980s may have been related to the fact that Linda and Hal have been developing sources in the Pentagon. And
some more MJ-12 talk with Tom Whitmore when we return.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Great job so far. I hope I'm doing you justice here, buddy.
Oh, you're doing fine. I hope I'm making sense.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to excuse myself for a moment and get a glass of water.
No problem. You guys having a good time tonight? So I went shopping yesterday. I'm in this shoe store. And I love Converse shoes. Love Converse shoes. And I'm looking at the Chucks, and I'm like, I could buy up every pair in here. Hi, attorney. How you doing? No, I haven't seen the Tragically Hip doc yet. Yeah, it was an expensive day, Tim. But then I saw these Decepticon, Megatron, Transformers Chucks. And I just flipped my lid. And they didn't have my size. They were a 10. I wear a 9. And my son saw them. I showed my son because I was going to get him a pair. They didn't have them. So now I'm having to go online and get them for Christmas for him. I just don't know what I want. I'm looking. I was looking online earlier for the Converse shoes, and I did not realize they had so many different Transformers shoes. And I'm like now wanting like all of them. And I don't know which ones to get. I really don't. They have these really awesome Optimus Prime ones. Probably going to get those badasses for myself. That'll be my Christmas present to myself. Get my son the Megatron ones. Oh, yeah. I think that's going to happen. All right, 45 seconds. Thank you to Deborah Rooney, JSCO, Richard, Simon ×2, and Human Carl for the wonderful super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. And let's see here. You Dodgers people. Yeah, I was going to take my hat off, but just considering the rudeness in the chat room right now, I'm going to keep this on so you guys know what a winner looks like. Just saying. Here we go, everybody, in like 8 seconds. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we continue the MJ-12 talk with Tom Whitmore. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's Tom Whitmore. We have until the top of the hour talking about the infamous MJ-12, Majestic 12. Was it talking about UFOs? Was it talking about alien contact? And Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Dave. And this time has really gone by quickly. I'm surprised, but it's been a quick hour and a half.
Totally has. But we're glad to have you back on the air. It's been way too long since we had you here. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right. Let us get right to a couple of questions here from our audience. And I have a couple of people harassing me about, I guess they're LA Dodgers fans. And one of them saying, Dave, I thought your hat size was bigger than your shoe size. I'm an 8, but at least I wear a 13. My shoe size is a 9 and my hat size is an 8. I got a big melon. Okay. Big melon. All right. Attorney is asking, Tom, can you tell the story about the agreement and the special room in which it's stored?
Yeah, good question. That, as far as I know, is a rumor, and it did turn up during a lot of the rumors that were circulating in the 1980s. There were a couple of people that were really spreading a lot of this kind of stuff around. One was William Bill Cooper, who I consider to be a rumor monger, and he had a radio show, a ham radio show. And he was like Mr. Conspiracy, talking about all kinds of different conspiracies, some of which we still talk about today. And then there was also John Lear. And John Lear is well known in the UFO world. And they were really spreading around a lot of these rumors about underground bases and aliens having vats full of body parts and all this kind of thing. And among those rumors was this alleged treaty. And there have been stories and rumors for many years that Eisenhower met with aliens either on, I think at Muroc, what was at the time called Muroc Air Force Base. I think it's now Edwards Air Force Base. That he met aliens there. And then there has been the allegation, the rumor, the story that the Ebens landed at Holloman Air Force Base, and that there was a meeting, kind of a diplomatic introduction. And in that whole storyline is that some kind of treaty was formed between the U.S. and this alien group. Now, the rumors that were flying around and making people very worried was that this treaty, the treaty's stipulations were that the U.S. government would keep the aliens' identity secret, and that the aliens could abduct humans, but they were supposed to provide a list of the people that were being abducted. And again, the rumor was that the aliens were deceptive and they weren't holding up their side of the bargain. And this treaty was so secret, so sensitive, that it was printed out on paper that will disintegrate if it's put into regular atmospheric air, and that it was kept in a cabinet where you could read it, you could see it, but that if anyone took it out, it would immediately disintegrate. Now, this is a pretty wild story, and I never go so far as to say something can't be true and isn't true, because I don't know. But those are the elements of the story that's been floating around. And all of us in the UFO community have heard these rumors for years, that there's some kind of an agreement between the US and the aliens. Now, I think we got to remember, assuming the aliens do exist, that they're not just one monolithic group. There are several groups, different types of entities, different types of creatures that come from different points in the universe, some close, maybe some far. And they're very, very different from us. They probably have very different brains. You know, you have language barriers, language problems, and all that. And their technologies, assuming that they've been recovered, their technologies are different. And, again, kind of a little bit of conjecture that the study that's been done on the technology that has been recovered is, in some ways, has made some progress, in other ways and other technologies have. So there's none of this is confirmed, and it's definitely not officially confirmed. So it all falls in the rumor, category.
PRM is asking, did you watch any of the new Paradigm Institute stream on the weekend? Guests included Ross, Lou, Carl Nell. Just was curious.
Yeah, I saw it. I signed up for it. I watched the whole thing. There are a couple of points I want to make about disclosure. We've got some serious problems because there is this law known as the Espionage Act, and there have been other laws that have been passed on behalf of national security. And people that are involved in or work in classified projects, unacknowledged special access projects, and so on and so forth, they're bound to secrecy. Now, with the disclosure movement, it's really kind of like a political movement, because we're trying to get the government to do what we want them to do, which is disclose whatever information they have about UFOs. And like I said, Luis Elizondo pointed out that it's a long-term effort. It can be a very long-term effort. And I'll give you an example. The poor slaves, the American blacks, the African Americans, they were liberated in the 1860s, but it took them 100 years to get civil rights legislation that amounted to anything. And I'm not taking sides on abortion, but you take, like Roe versus Wade, for the people that are pro-life, it took them, 50 years to get to the point to where the Supreme Court would rule that it be taken back to the states. Now, I'm not taking a side one way or another. I'm simply illustrating how long it can take to get something done. And now, for the American blacks, the African Americans, God bless them, they had a hard time getting the government to recognize that they were even citizens. And we've got an even bigger problem. We can't get the government to admit that UFOs even exist. And it's been a long-term policy. I mean, it's been a policy since the 50s, because in the 50s, you had these flyovers of UFOs in Washington, D.C., and we had General Sanford come out and claim that they were results of temperature inversions in the atmosphere. And in the 50s, we had the Robertson panel that ruled that UFOs were not an issue. And in the 60s, we had the Condon report, and people had hopes that some progress would be made there. But Condon wrote the summary and stated that UFOs were not worthy of scientific investigation. In the 1990s, after the Roswell incident had become an issue with the UFO public, there was this Roswell report, Fact versus Fiction, in the New Mexico desert. It was under the supervision of Colonel Richard Weaver and the AFOSI. And they came out and said that they believed that Roswell was a mogul balloon. A couple of years later, they came out with this Roswell report, case closed, where they claimed that the bodies were dummies that were parachuted in. And the timeline was completely wrong with that. And we also had the General Accountability Office, who did a search for Roswell records and turned up nothing. So, and then lately, now we have had some progress in that the legislature has mandated this ARROW, this group that is taking UFO reports. But Sean Kirkpatrick came out with a historical report on UFOs and said that they didn't have anything on it or anything of any substance. And even a couple of days ago, there was a press conference, and a reporter asked directly this 2-star Major General Pat Ryder, who was running the press conference. They asked him directly, "What do we have on UFOs?" And he said the same thing. They don't have any evidence that UFOs exist or are of extraterrestrial origin. And the bottom line is, it's a long-term policy that goes back to the 50s, even the 40s, when the estimate of the situation was rejected by General Vandenberg. It's been a long-term policy, and it has not changed.
If so many people don't believe within the system that MJ-12, UFOs, alien contact, secret space program, or whatever it may be, doesn't exist, because they always use the same excuse, there is no evidence, Tom, then why are we wasting our time if there is none of this?
Well, it depends on your point of view. Now, the scientific types, they want data, they want evidence, they want proof. Now, I understand that, but the UFO problem is unique. And my personal ethic is that if you're going to make a claim, you should have some supporting evidence, not just a story, but documentary evidence or corroboration, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of a continuum. Now, I deal in historical issues, and I'm trying to find supporting evidence for both sides that, the MJ-12 documents either point to something real or that they're phony and they don't point to anything, and that there are two sides of that question. But I think it's very hard, if you're honest, to make an argument that over history since World War II, that we don't have any evidence of that UFOs are an issue. I think it's very hard to make that argument. But it's much easier to make an argument this whole crash saucer business could have been invented by government people, government agents going into the public, implanting these stories of crash saucers and alien bodies and all that. Now, I'm not saying that they've done that, and I'm not saying that I believe that, but that you could make an argument that maybe that whole line of reasoning is artificial.
All right, let's continue on here. As Tom Whitmore is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Tom, do you think then, if there is enough evidence out there to support that these programs like MJ-12 are there, how many more programs do you think there are? I mean, recently we heard about Immaculate Constellation, being, to me, it sounds very similar to what MJ-12 would be. How many of these programs do you think, or have you got leads on that exist?
Assuming that the UFO problem is a real issue, there are probably dozens of them, with using different code names. And I'd like to point out, I haven't corroborated this, but I did get an indication a couple of days ago that Susan Goff, that people love so much in the Pentagon, came out and said that they had no record of Immaculate Constellation. So that's even the latest example of the government. They're either stonewalling or maybe there isn't anything to it. I don't know. But, I think that a good example is in the 50s and 60s, the top echelons of the government had a committee called 5412. And it was a committee of people on the highest levels of the administration and the National Security Council that approved covert operations. So when there's something specific to deal with, the government can form committees and people get together from different departments and they work on a problem, or they come up with a plan and they decide what to do. So it's possible if there is an MJ-12 or something like it that was called something different, or that groups of people were formed at different times during our history, to address specific issues. Or it could be that certain positions in the government are permanently affixed to this problem and they're very high level, but it's more like a matrix. If you go across and you check off certain boxes, certain compartments within government functions and government roles, and there maybe isn't any quote unquote MJ-12 committee per se.
I'm always wondering about that because, when we sit there and we look at all of these different alphabet agencies that seem to have a different covert name for all of this, MJ-12 to me would be in that UFOs Pandora's box that I had been talking about for years, Tom, and I'd even mentioned that to you a number of times. And then coincidentally, about a year and a bit ago, Chris Mellon said there's like this Pandora's box of secrecy at the Pentagon regarding this subject. Do you see this as being one of the key factors into defining whether or not the U.S. government, especially in this case, is holding on to secrets of the unknown?
Yeah, because Pandora's box, I think, is an excellent analogy. And I know Richard Doty keeps saying that he thinks that the government should at least admit to Roswell. But if they do, that's not going to be the end of it. That's just going to be the beginning. And there'll be questions and more questions and more questions. And it literally is a Pandora's box. Once you open it, the demons fly out and they're not going to go back in. You can't shut that box and you can't unring the bell. So it makes perfect sense that the authorities won't let go of this. And this is why I'm pessimistic about disclosure in the short run. I don't think people are going to see anything anytime soon. It's possible. I don't think it's likely that in the longer term, 50 years, maybe 100 years, with maybe some political organization, some political pressure that maybe something can be disclosed. But this is really, people talk about ontological shock. We have millions of people on Earth that run their lives according to the testimony of one person that had no supporting evidence. And there are other religions like that, maybe with a few more people. And their world, I think, would be completely turned upside down. They would have to question the very basics of the things they believe in. And if you look at it from the point of view of the authorities, that's a very serious issue.
Question coming from Luna. What is your take on the secret missing diary of Admiral Byrd, how he ran into an ancient advanced civilization in Antarctica?
I don't know where they come up with this. I read a book about Admiral Byrd, and he was very interested in Antarctica. He lived in Antarctica for a while, practically killed himself with carbon monoxide poisoning from the generator, from the heater. And he was a proponent of this Operation High Jump. They organized, a lot of Navy vessels and a Navy project to go down there. And if he came across anything that was sensitive, you're not going to read about that in the regular literature. Now, I'm not saying that he did. In fact, from the open source literature and the regular, conventional literature, there's no indication that he had anything like that. And I honestly don't know where these rumors come from. There's kind of this, I guess, a fantasy that the Nazis after World War II went down to Antarctica, or they already had an Antarctica base, and they took their submarines down there, and they had advanced technology like UFOs and all this kind of thing. And it's, in my humble opinion, it's just fantasy. Just my opinion.
I'm not sure about it. I think it's too much Transformers at times when it comes to Antarctica and everything. I'm not saying that to insult our listener, but there's just so many people who don't have an understanding of what's going down there. As somebody who likes a lot of woo, I can tell you my point of view of Antarctica is we don't have a clue on what's going on down there. It's all speculation. Whether it's Admiral Byrd, whether it's Buzz Aldrin having to leave there because he had a panic attack by seeing something that looks like Megatron, right? So I'm not sure. Let's go to Joe here. How many alien groups do you think we have agreements with, Tom?
I don't know. I mean, there are anywhere from 5 to scores of alien groups. And over UFO history, we've seen so many different shapes and sizes of UFOs. And we've had the standard little gray guys who, with the big eyes, and we've had other reported grays that are taller. There have been, reptilian type entities reported. There have been Nordic type entities reported with the blonde hair and the blue eyes and all that. There have been insect-like creatures that have been reported, like a praying mantis. So I don't think they're all working together. There are different groups doing different things that have different agendas. And assuming that they exist in the part of the government, probably the Defense Intelligence Agency knows something about it. I don't know if they, how much they really know or understand about these different groups. And again, I keep saying this, but if it exists, they're not making it public. There's no public confirmation. So we don't know what they know or know what they don't know.
Tom, it's about that time where we got to say goodnight to you tonight. And I want to say a big thank you for returning to Spaced Out Radio first in your new kind of look into all of this. Where can people find you?
TomWhitmoreblog.wordpress.com. TomWhitmoreblog.wordpress.com.
Thank you, little Tommy Whitmore. We love you, Uncle Tom. Coming up next, we have Swamp Dweller. Then little Timmy James is going to join us for the UFO report. We'll be right back, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Tom, thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you for having me. The
Always.
time went really fast.
Way too fast. Way too fast. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Okay. Take care.
Much love, buddy.
Okay. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Love Tom Whitmore. One of the greatest people I have ever met in my life. Honestly, one of the greatest people. And we'll be right back, everybody. Okay, I am back. And hope you like Tom tonight. Another incredible show. Thank you tonight to Mama Catherine. Mwah. I love you. Deborah Rooney, JSCO, Simon times 2, Human Carl, and Richard for the great super chats. Very much appreciate the love, everybody. No breakfast burritos for dinner. No. And here we go in like 10 seconds. Here comes the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always a good time when you guys are around. We're around and we're talking UFO news together. Hey, I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Let's head to the swamp. Or hold on a second here. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. New York Yankees. New York Yankees is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Now, let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I've been a fan of the channel for a while. I've always wanted to share a story but can never think of a specific one to tell. Growing up as a Pentecostal Christian, I've seen a lot of stuff that might be interesting to people. These are a few of the stories. My church would have this yearly trip to towns close to the border with Haiti. I'm not going to speak of the practices of the Haitian community since I'm not Haitian, but I will talk about my own country. Many of these towns near the border are known for witchcraft and practices tied to the devil or demons. My church would go to these places because of the poverty found there, and we would give them food, clothes, and medicine. And every night there would be a service in a public park, also to show them the gospel of Jesus. During these services, weird things would happen. One time during the service at night, an old lady tried convincing my brother to follow her. Throughout the night, she kept looking at him and talking a few times, promising to show him something awesome. Later, we found out from the locals that she was a local witch. Another time during a service, this guy who was apparently demonically possessed fell to the ground and started moving like a snake, literally acting like he was a snake. One of the experiences still fresh in my memory was when a demon-possessed person punched the preacher. The person was saying things like, "I am the devil," and the preacher asked her if she wanted to be free. She later punched the preacher and had to be held by 4 men. This lady had inhuman strength, because barely all 4 of them could hold her. I'm not sure if this story should be considered paranormal or whatnot. What I saw was confirmed. The reason it happened, some people say it was drugs, other people will tell you it's demonic possession, but I'll let you guys argue that on your own. These were a few weird experiences I've had over the years in the church.
Thank you to Swamp Dweller for another creepy short story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his channel, Swamp Dweller on YouTube. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Here comes the UFO report. Tim James.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Little Timmy James, I don't know if you noticed it outside today or not. Cold like snow.
Yeah, I noticed it a few times. Actually, we got maybe about a minute of those big Looney Toony size flakes that were here, and then that was it. I was like, oh, but yeah, going outside taking the dogs out, I was like, okay, it's a little chilly.
It's time to get acclimated again, my friend.
Yes, wearing the hoodie in the house, and all that good stuff.
You know what's funny is every year. So for our audience who doesn't know, Tim lives about, 3 miles from me.
Yeah.
And he's a frequent at SOR headquarters. Just comes over, talks UFOs, drinks my beer, and then leaves. That's pretty much it.
That's it.
There is no other friendship outside that, But the funny part, Tim will understand when I say this. And maybe some of you will if you live in the colder states or provinces listening in. In about 2.5, 3 months, today would have been t-shirt weather.
Yep.
It would have been t-shirt weather. When it gets down and your body is used to like minus 20 degrees Celsius, then minus 30 degrees Celsius, and then minus 40 degrees Celsius, which is also minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold.
Yeah.
When minus 20 degrees Celsius is feeling warm because you're coming out of a streak of minus 35 to minus 40, you know that your body is acclimated.
For sure. And I always like it when you come out of those minus 40s and then you look and it's like minus 15. It's like, nice. You got the window rolled down a bit.
Oh, yeah. Your heated seat on your vehicle is only down to 2 instead of 3. It's man alive. Man alive. Oh, man.
Oh, by the way, nice hat. I really like that.
Yeah, I'm a big-time New York Yankees fan.
Yeah, that's
Going
all
back
good.
to the World Series, I feel sorry for all these people who cheer for the LA Dodgers. And most of them are just bandwagon jumpers ever since Freddie Freeman and now Shohei Ohtani signed with the club. Bandwagon jumpers. You know how baseball is.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know that Rob G has to be on, because I'm a Yankee fan, he's got to do everything opposite of me. So now he's cheering for the LA Dodgers.
Yeah.
He's always been an LA Angels fan, but now he's cheering for the Dodgers just to, fire another, stick in my direction,
Well, I guess the Dodgers is the only LA team besides the Kings that actually knew where to stay. Like they jump all over the place like a bad habit, right? And they're in Vegas, then they're in Oakland, then they're there, then they're there, then they're. It's like, geez, you guys.
Yeah. Terry Hall, part of our SOR team, he must have, he must have trimmed his mustache a little bit too high because he's saying Dodgers at 6.
Wow.
Oh, man, what's with these people?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
These people. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. By the way, let's talk some UFOs because a lot of strange people talking baseball here in our chat room and
true
hockey season. Let's get to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I read an interesting article, and it was from the Liberation Times, written by Christopher Sharp, and it's an op-ed, but I found it very interesting, and I just thought it was some food for thought. And his take on it, and there were some interesting things. So I thought that the rest of SOR might be interested in this too if they haven't read it already. So what it is he's basically saying the title of the article, or his opinion article, is why Congress must focus on UFO retrieval programs. So with the full UAPDA seemingly set to fail for the second consecutive year, a small group of politicians, possibly swayed by the intelligence community, defense establishment, and defense contractors, appears to be playing a significant role in its downfall. One can only speculate why certain politicians continue to prioritize special interests over the very people who elected them. Is it the flood of donations from defense contractors, or perhaps the fear that the intelligence community holds compromising information? Either way, their loyalty seemed to be disturbingly misplaced and jeopardize the safety of courageous UAP whistleblowers who have come forward. As we await the election of president, it may ultimately fall to the incoming commander-in-chief to take the bold steps needed to push UAP transparency forward, especially given the deep entanglement of vested interests within Congress. For now, all eyes turn to the two upcoming congressional hearings expected in November, one in the Senate led by Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and the other in the House spearheaded by Representative Nancy Mace. These hearings and those which may follow provide an opportunity to finally address the core of the issue, unraveling the retrieval programs conducted by elements within the intelligence community and the Department of Defense and their involvement with UAP. Note that the Department of Defense components operate under Title 10 authorities, while intelligence community functions fall under Title 50 authorities. Crucially, when joint missions blur the lines between these two frameworks, the CIA's Associate Director for Military Affairs plays a key role in adjudicating the overlapping responsibilities. Nonetheless, the existence of retrieval programs is not the stuff of conspiracy, nor should it be controversial to discuss. They are a fundamental part of any capable nation's defense strategy. Even the UK, despite its government's frequent inefficiencies, has managed to establish a program. I think there we are. We're back.
No, you're freezing up there. There you are.
Early. Yeah, I'm back. I know it glitched out here. I was like, oh my gosh. Sorry about that. So earlier this year, a Telegraph journalist visited Pathfinder at Royal Air Force Whitton, described as the largest top secret Five Eyes by design military intelligence, fusion, and assessment facility in the world. The journalist noted that the presence of foreign drones, including a Russian Orlan 10 reconnaissance drone and an Iranian Shahed 131 attack drone, somehow retrieved from the battlefields of the Ukraine and brought to this high security facility in Cambridgeshire. So in the US, the existence of such programs is beyond dispute for any logical person with any basic grasp of how great powers operate in the shadows. Previously reported from the Liberation Times and the Daily Mail alleged that land and undersea retrieval missions are actively underway, primarily targeting adversarial materials and downed satellites. These operations reportedly involved elements of the CIA, the U.S. Navy, United States Special Operation Command, and the Joint Special Operation Command. Given the undeniable existence of these retrieval programs, congressional hearings should prioritize investigating them and their involvement in UAP. Subpoenaing key witnesses with direct knowledge of retrieval operations is essential. The focus must be on recovery of materials, craft, and biologics of unknown or non-human origin. A key element of this investigation must be establishing the chain of custody for exotic recovered materials, which defense contractors and national labs have received these materials. What agreements are in place for their handling and analysis? After initial analysis is conducted to determine the potential origin, what are the next steps for deeper study and reverse engineering? What technologies have successfully been replicated, and can they be released for the public good? This level of questioning is essential if true transparency is to be achieved on the UAP topic. Another critical but yet often overlooked component is the tracking of the UAPs before their crash or landing locations are confirmed. Investigating this aspect would likely require coordination between the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Office. A haunting possibility, and perhaps a large reason behind the UAP cover-up, is the alleged deliberate downing of non-human crafts. Two sources have told the Liberation Times that non-human crafts are being brought down using a special or specific radar waveform repeater, a method which is also used to attract them. Independent confirmation of showdowns through congressional hearings would serve as a reckoning for the secret keepers. It would be in the best interest to reach a compromise on the UAP transparency before such information is verified and released. But to get to this position, Congress must focus. To achieve any meaningful transparency through hearings rather than legislation, which Congress seems ill-equipped to handle at the moment, Congress must concentrate its efforts and hold frequent, focused hearings on retrieval missions. In other words, we can no longer settle for yearly hearings that generate a few headlines and then fade away. What we need is a church-style committee hearing with real depth and accountability. To truly cover the core of these retrieval programs, Congress must begin by focusing on the CIA. So, yeah, it's a very cool op-ed. I think I agreed with a lot of it. I think it just lays it on the line, or this gentleman just lays it on the line and said, look, we need to get on with this. The big fear, too, that he put in a little quote was that what other countries, and I think you and I were talking about it, Dave, what other countries possibly have things like this in their grasp or in their secret locations, and how far ahead are they in reverse engineering and all this sort of stuff? The denial thing just doesn't work. You keep denying it. But somebody's going to pop out of a corner, whether it be China, Russia, whoever, it doesn't even matter. Somebody's going to pop out ahead and go, look what we got. And what's going to happen there, right?
Well, you know what? I thought you brought up some good points. And Christopher Sharp, I consider him a good friend of this show. And I'm a big fan of liberationtimes.com. If anybody wants to check it on out and see what it's all about. Chris's reporting is very, very strong and real old-fashioned in the way he digs for the news that he brings out. That being said, the one thing that I think we all have to take into consideration here is there are very few politicians that are out there that are actually interested in this subject. Okay? Very few.
Yeah.
I mean, the Senate has alone 100 members, 2 from each state. And they're both elected to serve for terms of 6 years. How many senators have we had that have come out in support of this publicly out of those 100?
Yeah.
5?
Yeah, a small handful, that's for sure.
And if we look at Congress people, there's 435 of them. Well, pardon me, 535, 100 senators, and 435 representatives. So there's 435 representatives. How many have we seen of those representatives take this subject seriously publicly? Look, there is always politicians that are out there that are supporting things behind the scenes. We know this. In fact, in Canada, Member of Parliament Larry Maguire has been very vocal about this. Raquel Dancho has been a little bit loud about it, same as Michelle Garner-Rempel, pardon me. And I can tell you this, there's at least 15 to 20 more that are very interested in this subject. But that isn't a lot, considering we know there's going to be more voices that are quiet. Look, for the latest hearings, now we're hearing Nancy Mace is getting involved. with this latest hearing, and she is known as a pit bull.
I was just going to say that.
Out information.
Mhm.
That's a good thing. But of 435 representatives and 100 senators, how many of them actually truly care or think that this is a waste of time? The downturn of the Schumer Amendment times 2 is pretty much telling that they don't care about this subject. They think it's a waste of time, whether it's because of their personal beliefs or they think that right now we're in a critical juncture with what's happening around the world, because everybody seems to be getting into a war these days. A lot of these politicians around the world need a good slap to the side of the head, because this isn't what the people want. This is what they want.
No.
But we also look at the
No,
economy.
for sure.
We look at jobs, homelessness, food prices, medical prices, everything. That's what they're concerned about. Now, I got to be honest. If my member of parliament came up and said, "Hey, would you rather me worry about UFOs or worry about food and the price of food that has jumped between 50 and 70% for all vegetables and fruits at our supermarkets?" That's what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I care about. And even though I'm a UFO guy, I'm not caring about UFOs. I'm worried about having to feed my family.
Agreed.
Okay. I'm worried right now about how to figure out, how do I save enough money over the next couple of months to get through a cold Canadian winter?
Yep. Oh, I
So
couldn't agree more.
I could see where this topic is going to take a backstage. I mean, should people of North Carolina or Georgia right now be worried about UFOs when they're trying to, and even Florida, when they're trying to rebuild from those horrid hurricanes? It's not about UFOs right now. It's about getting life back to normal.
Yeah.
Power in your house, finding a new home because yours was wrecked by a flood or the winds itself took it away.
Yeah.
That's what they care about.
No, and I mean, rightly so. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer. You would exactly, if my house was flooded out, I really wouldn't, be worrying about UFOs or Bigfoots or anything at this point in time. Just trying to get my life back together, and that hits a nail on the head for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened here with the forest fires.
Yep. No, everybody just
our houses. Where are we going to escape to be safe, rather than UFOs?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not sitting there watching the forest fire billow in the forest, wondering, hoping that Sasquatch is alive. I'm hoping that doesn't come to our territory.
Yeah.
So the point that I'm getting at, I'm not trying to shoot down Christopher Sharp, because, I love the guy. I think he's a brilliant writer. But we also have to come to the understanding that as passionate as we are about this subject, it's not the number one priority for a lot of people right now. This is a pivotal election year in the United States. Next year will be a pivotal election year in Canada if it doesn't happen sooner, which let's keep our fingers crossed that it does. It doesn't end up like British Columbia. But I mean, it's something that we have to realize. There are more important topics, and as important as the UFO topic is, we need to think about today, not technology hiding U.S. spies, okay, or misinformation agents, or hidden programs like Immaculate Constellation to try and find out what's going on. People want to eat. Tim James and the UFO Report continue right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned, everybody.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
What are you hearing?
I don't know. We just heard like a bang. It might have been one of the dogs jumping down, or yeah, they don't lay delicately on the floor up there. So
Probably.
yeah, more than likely.
I don't like it when you're not in studio. Just saying.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's weird. It is weird. Yeah, I got all that onboarding today. 71 documents, man. Like, are you kidding? Well, I didn't get it today. I think I got it on like last Thursday, and it was in my junk mail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I got an email from a lady at work today, and she was like, "Hey, did you get that stuff?" And I'm like, "No." And I was like, "Hang on a sec. Oh, yeah, I did." So,
yeah,
it's been it's been fun. It has been fun.
I'll have to
Still got a
tell
lot
you
left
after the show the
to
latest.
do, but yeah, I'll be in on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Bum, bum, bum.
I'll have to tell you the latest work
We
drum
won't
at
say
my
any
place.
names on the air.
No, I'll tell you off the air. You'll have to.
Yeah.
Paul Demon, how you
Understood.
doing?
You still eating cough candies, man?
Huh?
Are you still eating cough candies?
Oh, dude, I got this dry
You live
cough
on-
I can't shake. It's a little better
Yeah.
tonight. It's a
Oh,
little
okay.
better tonight because I drenched my spaghetti tonight in hot
Ooh,
sauce.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pay the price of the morning, but
Which hot sauce are you
Tonight-
using?
tonight I use Melinda's hot sauce. It's
Okay.
4 out of 5 flames.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good stuff. If this continues tomorrow, because I love spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
Called Melinda's hot sauce. Tomorrow I'll use something a little bit hotter. If this continues, because I'm going to burn this crap off. It's getting ridiculous.
Yep. It sounds like Phil's getting over sick. Like he sounded pretty lousy too.
I will tell you something, and you might not believe me. Okay. But the quickest way to get over sickness in your lungs and chest is pound hot sauce. The hotter, the better. Because what the hot sauce does with the peppers in it is it burns your mucus lining. And when you do not have a mucus lining in your lungs, you get rid of COVID, you get rid of bronchitis, you get rid of pneumonia very, very quickly. I did this a few years ago in 2019 when I had bronchitis for 4.5 months. That's how I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, you tried it.
Yep. And it worked.
You had the V. I think you tried it for like 4 or 5 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And you were back to normal and right after that.
Yeah, it took, like you say, 4 or 5 days, and then it was like bam. I was like, okay, this is all right. But
yeah, you're going weeks suffering. And then all of a sudden you start shooting the hot sauce for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it works fantastic. Clears you right out.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Sometimes it hurts going in, hurts going down, and it hurts coming out.
Oh.
But I would sooner have that than be sick for 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
Gee, 5 days where you only burn twice a day.
Yeah.
I'm not giving medical advice. I'm saying what works for me.
Yeah, for sure.
1971 Marmaduke. Love the name. It's actually Marduk, but I call it Marmaduke. Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his spaced out radio. And by the way, Miss 1971 Marmaduke, my doctor told me that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you to Richard, Simon ×2, Human Carl, JSCO, Deborah Rooney ×2, and Mama Catherine for the great super chats. And we got like 7 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tim James, the UFO report continues. Timmy, what do you got for us next?
Well, found out, I guess, well, this is on the 11th of October, Germany joins the Space Multinational Force / Operation Olympic Defender. So this is in Berlin. U.S. Space Command formally recognized Germany's membership in the multinational force Operation Olympic Defender on October 11th. So U.S. Space Force General Stephen Whiting, USSpace.com, and Multinational Force OOD Commander General or German Minister of Defense, Military Strategy and Operations Director, General Lieutenant Gunther Schneider, and representatives from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand participated in a formal accessions ceremony in Berlin to commemorate this historic occasion. So the multinational named operation represents a growing commitment among the closest allies in space to jointly strengthen defenses and deter aggression, ensuring space remains a domain that benefits all of humanity. Space is truly a team sport. The Germany to our roster of growing like-minded partners contributes to our collective ability to address the growing threats in the domain and ensure space remains safe and secure for generations to come, Whiting said. The diverse perspectives, capabilities, and opportunities for greater information sharing that our partners bring to bear is an asymmetric advantage that's proof we are stronger together. Originally established in 2013 under U.S. Strategic Command, OOD has expanded to a multinational effort that focuses to optimize space operations, improve mission assurances, enhance resilience of space-based systems, synchronize efforts to strengthen deterrence against hostile actors, and reduce the spread of debris orbiting the Earth. In spring of 2024, the command of U.S. Spacecom and MNFOOD extended invitations to France, Germany, and New Zealand. In September of 2024, New Zealand formally accepted the offer. According to our assessment, multinational cooperation is key to security and defense in space, as no nation can guarantee unimpeded access to the secure use of space unilaterally. Therefore, becoming a member of the OOD community not only complements, but from an operational perspective, crowns our other cooperation formats with the U.S. for the space domain, Schneider said. Our common efforts as allies to increase our space domain awareness will not only lead to a better understanding of the space domain, but it will also dissuade possible adversaries from dangerous and escalatory behavior in space, as they will have to take into account that we can closely observe and evaluate each of their actions. So, yeah, that was kind of, so the Space Force is getting bigger and more nations are coming together. And yeah, that just, again, my brain goes, there are no aliens. We don't have anything here. There's no spacecraft. We've never seen crashes. But then they're joint. It's, I don't know. You got one group going, yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up because
Mm.
Tom Whitmore had just said the same thing about an hour ago, that you have all of these people denying existence, but here they are working together to keep the cover up alive. So which one
I
is
know.
it?
I know, right? I just look at it and I go, you can't push and pull at the same time. So yeah, it's like the answers flip and the attitude flips, and it's just, I don't know what's behind the curtain today, right?
Well, it
I don't.
just goes to show how you can hide things in plain sight and
Mhm.
use the naivety of the public to your advantage.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
camouflage 101. Hide it in plain sight.
Yeah. No, agreed. No, it's just, yeah. I was reading it and I'm like, okay. 10 minutes ago, I was reading something where it's all denial. Now I'm reading something where they're bringing other nations in, and we're, and I'm being pretty just cut and dry with it, but I mean, obviously there's a bigger picture here. It doesn't just include UFO and UAP. I mean, you get the allies together and they're making sure that there's no, secret spy satellites and stuff. I'm sure that's, what's also wrapped up in that parcel. But yeah, it still alludes to the UAP, and, so who knows? Just, we'll see what happens. Who else is going to join?
Well, it's not so much about who's joining. It's a matter of, and I agree with you. That's important.
Yeah.
That's important. We need to know who's joining. But I mean, what we do need to do is we do need to pay attention, buddy, in regards to what are they covering up?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
not enough people are asking that exact same question, which is, if there's nothing there, why are we doing something about something that doesn't exist?
Right? Yeah. No, good point. I don't get it. But like I
It's
say,
like
I
Rob
think
Z's love for breakfast foods for dinner. It
there's
doesn't make
nothing
sense.
wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's everything wrong with that.
All right. Agree to disagree.
Final story, bud.
All right. So you're cracking up a bit there. Hopefully, this is true. So this is one that I got from a guy that I know. His name's Dave Scott. He sent it to me this morning. So I thought it was a very cool story. So the strange disappearance of Frederick Valentich. So again, here it is, this day in history. So on the evening of October 21st, 1978, a lone Cessna 182L was flying over the waters of Bass Strait as it made its way from Melbourne to an island north of Tasmania. The pilot was Frederick Valentich, a 20-year-old with 150 hours of flight time in the books. So at 7:06 p.m., Melbourne Air Traffic Control received a transmission from Valentich's Cessna reporting an unidentified aircraft that seemed to be trailing him at approximately 4,500 feet in altitude. Air traffic controllers advised that they had no known traffic in his area. Valentich then continued with his observation on a large shiny metallic object that appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright landing lights, approximately 1,000 feet orbiting overhead his altitude and moving at a high rate. Valentich then reported that he was experiencing engine problems. Air traffic control asked Valentich. Yep,
You're breaking up really bad, Tim. You're breaking up really bad right now.
I gotcha.
Okay, try again.
Still? Okay. So continuing, Valentich then continued with observations on the large, shiny metallic object that appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright landing lights, approximately 1,000 feet, orbiting overhead his altitude and moving at a high rate. Valentich then reported that he was experiencing engine problems. Air traffic control once again asked Valentich to identify the aircraft, to which Valentich radioed, "It's not an aircraft." His transmission was then abruptly cut short by unidentified noise described as being metallic scraping sounds. No further contact was received from the Cessna that night. An air and sea search and rescue operation launched, including multiple surface vessels and the RAAF P-3 Orion and several civilian aircraft in an attempt to cover an area that encompassed over 1,000 square miles of ocean. All search efforts were unsuccessful, and recovery operations ceased on October 25th, 1978. Interestingly, a plumber named Roy Manifold reportedly witnessed a fast-moving object exiting the water near Cape Otway Lighthouse, of moderate dimensions, surrounded by a cloud-like vapor exhaust residue. Who knows what really happened that night? Loss of situational awareness, inadvertent entry into the graveyard spiral. The pilot Strange reported sighting moments before disappearing makes this case a most unusual one. Questions as vast as space and timelessness as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of a man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination in an area which we like to call the Twilight Zone.
What do you think? Do you think he was taken?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I was sitting here and I was scrolling through YouTube, and there's actually a couple of shows on YouTube, and I think his granddaughter or somebody in the family, but it's like a 45-minute show, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be watching that later to find out more about it. But yeah, I mean, could have crashed, but if he's over the ocean, well, I don't know, 1978. And black box capability in a Cessna. I don't know if they probably got an EPROB. You know more about planes than I do. So if they go into the ocean.
Yeah, they usually, water and airplanes don't usually work very well together. So I guess the way I look at it, I think this guy was taken. He's reporting a UFO from the sky. There is no crash. There is no debris from the plane. You know, even a small Cessna will leave an oil slick or something. Okay, even if the plane goes in, it's not going to be a big crash site. It would be a needle in the haystack, but at least they can find an oil slick. Okay.
Yeah, I would.
This guy is reported that he's being followed. He's being reporting what the craft looks like. He can't shake it because, well, the plane doesn't have any power whatsoever. He has 180 hours of flying the Cessna and enough observational experience to tell between a 737, a 747, a 757, any type of Airbus, and something that doesn't look good. I mean, it is shades of, the mystery of flight MH370 that this guy just vanished.
Right.
And I don't know. It's like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's like Close Encounters of the Third Kind where they all vanish.
Especially when
they're going to be brought back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in the story too, what gets me is, like you say, all the things that you mentioned, but the sound of the crunching of the metal, this scraping metal, and then it's like, okay, if he's over the ocean, you might be, obviously you're going to hear metal crumple up when you hit the water, but that I don't think that sound that was described by, like I say, air traffic control would have been a water thing. It never know. Could have been picked up and taken away. But I was wondering too if they had EPIRBs like they do on the fishing boats, because I know that if you hit the water, and obviously with the sound, like I say, it's not a black box thing, but those EPIRBs that float in the water, and then as soon as they get wet and break away from whatever they're attached to in the boat, will send a pawn signal to Coast Guard and whatever and what have you. So I was just curious about that too, if there was anything safety that wise. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm going to watch that show and see what the family says and what their theories are on it, because it's a cool story. And it was good that you sent it today. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Well, you know what? I love these anniversary day type stories. You know, when you can sit here and you can patch an event, the actual date it happened. And today is one of those, which is really cool. I mean, just imagine this family has been wondering for 45 years what happened to their son, their brother, their nephew, their grandson. And it is, it is something where that area is known for that type of contact. And why, how, who knows? It's not like it happens often. It's not like it happens often, but it is something that
definitely not.
It does happen. And I don't think we're ever going to know what truly happened. At least we know from the audio transcripts what he was looking at, what was going on. However, getting to the bottom of it and the truth, I don't see it happening. It's much like I don't think we'll ever see what really happened to flight MH370. Now, I don't believe that one, and this is my personal opinion, and the UFO people not like this, but I don't believe for a second it was taken by a UFO. I don't.
No.
And, that one I think is a little bit more sinister. I really do. Considering when you know who was on that plane. And which was
there. That I've seen.
40,
I
think it was 40 Chinese national electronic warfare experts. So I mean, they're never going to tell us.
No.
They're never going to, there's a big difference between this UFO sighting and MH370 now that I think about it. Nobody's going to just take down a Cessna 180 or 182 for no reason. Okay. I don't think the guy went crazy.
No,
if he went crazy, he would have put the plane right into the ocean. Okay. He wouldn't make up some cockamamie UFO story, or he would have put it into the ground by the runway and probably mention that here's my love note to say goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. And then
None of that.
And the other thing too is, like you said, his voice recordings or whatever, but his last words were, it's not an aircraft or it's not a plane. And it was, and then all of a sudden his radio goes kaput, right? It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Kind of freaky. And again, 1978. So yeah. And 150 hours at 20 years old flying a Cessna. So it's all short flights. Yeah. His identification process and stuff would be top notch, you would think. He's still fresh and whatever. But yeah, I'd be going to check it out. Like I say, I'm going to watch the show tonight, or maybe tomorrow, and see what more information I can get on it, because it is a cool topic. And those ones that just where things just disappear, those are, I mean, I guess woo, but it's like, what the heck? How do things just vanish like that? So yeah, I'm interested.
Well, I'm interested too, man. I'm interested to see how this plays out, where they're going with it. I mean, like I said, we're never going to see the truth of the matter when it comes to a story like this. We can look at it all we want, but I mean, there's all these hidden stories about it. There was, I mean, going back to the Vietnam War, there's a story about a B-52 being taken down by a UFO.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters throughout World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. There are, and we're not talking Dave Grohl on top of there goes my hero. Watch up as he goes. He's having a bad time right now.
Well, self-induced, but oh well.
Yeah. But I mean, there are incidents of this happening. There are incidents of this happening. And, we shan't forget about those. I just wanted to use the word shan't there.
We shan't.
We shan't
I like it.
Shan't let it happen. But They are happening. These incidents are happening. You know, we could check North America. We could check Transport Canada. We could check the FAA and get these reports of things that you know have had these pilots that have had close encounters. I'm not interested in the military interactions. I really am not interested.
Yeah.
You know, I'm interested in people's interactions. That's why one, you know, on the anniversary of today, it seems so interesting to what's going on.
Yes, for sure. So I got one thing to add real quick, because I know that we're just about wrapping her up here. Remember the email that I told you I sent the other day?
Yes.
So this is what I wrote. Dave knows about it, but I got a response. So I wrote to Sky Canada project team. So I wrote an email and I said, "Good morning. I was wondering if there was a firmer date set for the release of the Sky Canada project report. As stated, the report is to be released early this fall, which is somewhat vague, and any information would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time." So I got one today. Good morning, and thank you for your question. We expect the report to be available later this fall. Early December.
Well,
so
that's interesting that it's delayed that far.
That out probably to early winter now.
There's got to be a reason why it was stretched out. But thank you for that update on the Sky Canada project, because that was something that we, you know, have been anticipating. We thought it was going to happen by now. You know, we were hearing mid to late September, and then now going into mid-October now, where we are in the latter stages of that. Find out that it might not be until November, December. Maybe they're waiting on what happens security-wise with the U.S. election before that happens. Tim, thank you for a great job. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking it in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elgin, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio, Tesla Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. And soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. That's a good song. That's a good
I love
song.
that song.
Good night, Mama Catherine. Sleep well.
Good sleep.
That's our Mama Catherine right there.
Yeah.
'Tis true. It's true.
It is.
We're motoring. What's your price for flight? Hard to believe that song just turned 40.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember it. I remember it in grade 12, I think. It was like, that was the slow dance song.
What was ours at school? Oh, man. It was some metal ballad.
Of course it was. That was the big, what was it? The big Hollywood or Sunset Strip. They couldn't. Everybody had established themselves, and then all of a sudden they just started cookie cuttering. And if you could make a ballad, you were a hit. And there was thousands of them out there.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite?
My favorite ballad?
Come on, give us what are you dancing to? What are you dancing to with the wife?
Gotta think. Probably. Geez, I don't even know. Because we just dance to everything when we go dancing. So we don't really have a favorite, but I don't know, dude. What about you?
There's a few.
Mm.
Unlike I like the obscure ones.
Okay.
House Pain by Faster Pussycat.
Okay, cool.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue.
That was my first choice, but I thought, yeah, that's not what I'm dancing to my wife to, but that's probably my number one.
What's it? Hold on. The hell's it called?
What was it? Yeah.
I'll Never Let You Go by Streetheart or Steelheart.
Okay.
Steelheart. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the big one. I mean, every rose has its thorn. That was always played. Bon Jovi's I'll Remember You.
Yeah. Always.
Skid Row.
Yeah.
I'll
remember you. What was Warrant had a couple too. Not Cherry Pie, but they had a couple of
Sometimes She Cries
too. That's it.
I like Janie Lee. He was a good singer, dude. Man,
no
he
doubt.
hated that Cherry Pie.
Too bad what I know. I saw an interview with him, and he goes, if I had my choice, I would have gone back and not written that song. I was like, well, made you a very rich young man. But then again, like how many times, like, I mean, I played in bands tons when I was growing up and, into my early and mid 20s, and playing the same songs all the time and, trying to keep them vibrant and out there. You just, after a while, you just start going through the motions. I could understand how you'd be like, oh my God, I've got to play something different.
Either way, though, I mean, like, but that's unfortunate. It's a catch-22 because that's what your fans want to see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons that Ace Frehley bailed out on Kiss, right? It became more of, and I read his book or whatever, and he said it became more of a choreographed stage show than it was a rock and roll band. And to get his head around it, that's all he'd do is he'd just drink, right? Whatever else, but yeah, and he couldn't stand it. He says, and if you were out of cue, like by, a quarter step or whatever, it just looked like junk. And like, yeah, I don't know if I could do it either, but super, super, super successful group, right?
Absolutely. Hold on one second. Just had to make sure of something there. Oh, I agree. But I mean, there are certain songs that need to be, they need to be put to bed by house bands. Okay. Like they need to go away. Like, we don't need any more homemade renditions of Jimmy Buffett's Pina fucking Colada song. Right?
Yeah.
Like that song needs to go.
Agreed. Agreed.
House bands doing Bob Seger's, you know, old time rock and roll.
Yep.
song. That's got to go away. We don't need
I know.
anybody else to sing the Cars Drive.
But I do like it. No. But I do like Metallica's version of Turn the Page when it comes to Bob Seger.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But
But
I'm
no,
talking, you go down to the local pub where they have live entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? You want to impress me?
Yeah.
Play some Eddie. Oh, what the hell's his name? Why can't I think of his name now?
Oh,
Oh, for God's sakes.
what band? Or is he solo artist?
Solo artist. Electric Avenue.
Oh,
You want to
I'm going to Eddie Grant.
Eddie Grant, thank you. Loved
You're
Eddie
welcome.
Grant. Okay. Like, I'm no music expert, far from it. But every time you walk into the local tavern or bar, it's the same people playing, or it's the same music at every bloody place. And it's like, I can't take it.
No, for sure. It's like going to a wedding. It's the same playlist. It's like, oh my God, not the chicken dance.
Oh, don't even start me on weddings.
Yeah,
If I'm ever, and it's rare, if I'm ever invited to a wedding, the first thing I ask is, will the DJ be playing the chicken dance song? Because if he is, I am not going.
You know they're going to play it. It didn't at our wedding because I was a DJ. So
I'm pretty,
that's not going on there.
Pretty quirky about stuff like that. Like, I have enough.
Yeah.
You know,
I get it.
That's the stuff that pisses me off.
Yeah. It's like the hokey pokey. What the heck? Why is that at a wedding?
I don't need to turn myself around anymore.
Hey, I was addicted to the hokey pokey until I turned myself around. So,
yeah. That was bad.
I know. It's a dad joke.
That was terrible.
Yes.
No way. Bird is the Word is way better than Pina Colada song.
Bird is bird. Bird is the word. Yeah.
Speaking of bird, is Peter Griffin versus the Chicken some of the best cartoon ever on Family Guy?
Yes.
How come the wokes out there are bitching and complaining about Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Tom and Jerry, and all the good cartoons, you know, Roadrunner Coyote, yet they absolutely love Family Guy.
Yep.
And Peter beating the shit out of the chicken.
Yeah, right.
And trust me, that's a great scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and then they've got the old man that lives down the road on the show. I won't use what his title is, but yeah. Right? Like, okay.
Yeah. We're worried about Roadrunner taking a piece of dynamite. Because, you know,
right.
In woke world, you could just go down to to the oil lube and donut shop and get a stick of Acme dynamite.
They're all over the place. Oh my
God. Yeah.
Yep. Let's
Thank you tonight
when we drop this anvil.
Right? Yeah, because my 11-year-old son's going to pick up a 100-pound anvil and drop it off a rock
Right.
onto a roadrunner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Anyways, let's shut her down for tonight. Big thank you to Deborah Rooney ×2, Simon ×2, Mama Catherine, Human Carl, Richard, and JSCO for the absolutely wonderful and lovely super chats tonight. Also, don't forget, tomorrow night on the show, we have Brian saying disclosure and secret space programs. That'll be fun. We got to meet Brian in Reno. So we're going to get into everything from my lab. It's going to be a deep, deep show tomorrow night. So we'll have some fun there. And Susan Massino on Wednesday to talk about haunted rock and roll.
Nice.
Tim, you hold on for a minute because I got to chat with you yet.
Yep.
And the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow night. Let's go Yankees, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.